So let's do some scenarios. Here is scenario 1. The network is down. Our network is here. My router is acting as a DHCP server. We have Google DNS out there at 8888, and I have 2 PCs on my network. The user that has the PC in the upper left-hand side of the drawing, they call in and say that the network is down, so we send the tech over. Let's see what we can do. So the first thing I said is that we check for link light. So I look over, I look at my switch, and I see that I definitely have a green link light on the switch. And if I look in the lower right-hand corner of my screen at the network icon, it does show the network icon there, and it has an exclamation point in it. What that usually means when it has that caution yellow triangle with the exclamation point in it, it means that the device has link, but what it doesn't have is a proper configuration to talk to the network, or the network resources Windows believes should be available are not available. So we can see that if I disconnect my cable from the switch, my network connection there changes to a red X. When it's the red X there, that means that I do not have a link light. So we can use that mechanism there to verify if we have link light or not. I plug that back in, and it changes back to that yellow caution sign. Let's open up a command prompt. The next thing I said to do is after we check to see if there is a link light, I said we should check to see if we have an IP address. So let's do an IP config and check that. And it does look like I have an IP address, 10.1.0.101 with a 24-bit mask and a default gateway of 10.0.0.1. Well, I'm going to have you take a break here, pause this, tell me what's wrong with this. What's wrong with what I'm looking at right now? So I'll let you pause, and we'll come back in a second and take a look at what's wrong. So did you figure it out? Did you see that 10.1.0.101, first of all, is on a different network than what we have in our drawing. Our drawing is 10.0.0./24. Second, my default gateway is on a completely separate subnet than my IP address. And because they're on different subnets, that will never, ever work. We won't ever be able to get that to work. So let's see what we can do about changing this to make it work. So I'm going to open up my network and sharing center, go to Ethernet 0 and select properties. IPv4, and take a look at what's configured. So it looks like somebody configured a static IP address on this workstation. What I've seen oftentimes is, as an administrator of both enterprise networks and home and friends and family networks, is that when users get frustrated with computers, they oftentimes will throw away all the logic that they've learned about how they operate, and they just start mashing the keyboard in any way possible, hoping for a result that will work. So I can oftentimes come into networks and see something exactly like this, where the user literally was just like, I don't know what to do anymore, so I'm just going to start typing and hope for the best. And the reality is, when you start doing troubleshooting like that, you can actually cause more problems for yourself than you solve. So here, let's change our IP address. Let's change it for the moment to be on the right network, and we'll leave it as a static address. And the reason I want to do this is just as an experiment to see if this will provide us network connectivity. So I'll hit OK here. We'll hit OK and close. And it looks like now, let's see, IP config. Looks like, oh, it's not even letting me have that address. Look at that. It's giving me a 169.254 address. Well, how did that happen? I have no idea. What a mess. Let's go back into our network configuration, and I'm going to check it out. Well, I definitely have 10.0.0.101 configured, but it's not showing up in my command prompt. Well, when that happens, what I usually like to do is, if we go to change adapter settings here, I usually like to right-click on my network interface adapter and disable it. Oftentimes what that means when you're getting a weird address like that is there's something goofy in your TCP IP stack. So I'm going to disable that interface and re-enable it again, and we'll see what happens. So my interface is re-enabled. Let's go back to command prompt and do an IP config. Still no address on there. And we're still getting the 169.254 address, meaning that something is wrong, and it's different than what we've configured. So what could the problem be here? Usually when this happens, This is an indication that we have a duplicate IP address on the network. Windows will usually tell us that there is a duplicate IP address. It'll pop up with an error message saying, hey, dumb user, there is another device with the same IP address on the network. In this case, we're not. We're just getting this very bizarre result where we configure our network interface card. Oops. Well, I guess we can get there from here too. There's all kinds of ways to get to this configuration in Windows. So even though I have an IP address correctly configured here, it is not accepting it when I look at command prompt. This is typically an indication of a duplicate IP address. I know for a fact this is a duplicate IP address. We're just not getting an error message saying it's a duplicate IP address. So what we can do to solve that is change our IP address to something different, or more appropriately, just allow us to obtain our IP information from the DHCP server. So I'm going to set them both to obtain it from the DHCP server. I'm going to hit OK and OK. Close my windows. Let's do an IP config. And now I'm getting IP address 10.0.0.102 with my default gateway at 10.0.0.1. This is outstanding. It most likely means that 10.0.0.101 had already been given out as an IP address. And like I said, I know that because I actually configured our network so that that second PC connected to our switch had that 101 address so that there would be a duplicate and have this machine not work. So now we have a correctly configured IP address. Let's see if we can ping the default gateway. Ping 10.0.0.1. And I can ping my default gateway. That is fantastic. Let's try to ping the internet. Ping 8.8.8.8. And I get a response from the internet. Excellent. That means that everything should be working. So I should be able to open up a web browser and go to a site like pluralsight.com and get the page to come up. But here it is. The user is complaining that the internet is down. So what's happening here? Well, we need to go to our next step of troubleshooting. Next step of troubleshooting is going to be to see if we can do an NS lookup to our DNS server. Right now, our DNS server is configured as 10.0.0.1. Now, that's the same IP address as our router. Our router is going to need some special configuration on it in order to act as a DNS relay. So let's see if we can resolve www.pluralsight.com, and we do not get a response. In fact, our workstation says no response from the server. So this means that DNS is down at 10.0.0.1. If I open up my Network and Sharing Center here, I can attempt to resolve this issue by going into my IPv4 configuration and statically assigning a DNS server of 8.8.8.8. I already know I can ping 8888. So if I exit NS lookup now and go back in, this time we're going to use 8888. If I go to www.pluralsight.com, now I do get an IP address resolution. If I go back to my browser here, pluralsight.com comes right up. So that first scenario, what we saw was that we had an IP address that was misconfigured. We had a user that put a static IP address on the interface that was on the wrong network, first of all. So we changed it to be on the right network. Once it was on the right network, we were able to ping everything, even out to the internet, but our DNS didn't work.